Hello, today I will be discussing about repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and interest rate. That is, what is the repo rate, what is the reverse repo rate, what is bank rate, and what is interest rate, and where does the difference exist. So today I will be discussing on this important topic of repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and interest rate. Now, look, repo rate. When commercial banks approach the Reserve Bank of India for funds, they are charged a certain amount of interest rate. The rate at which RBI lends these finances to commercial banks is called the repo rate. So, what is the repo rate? Repo rate is a rate. It is the rate at which the central bank, that is the RBI of our country, lends money to the commercial banks. And here, one thing you should remember is that when the central bank lends money, there is a exchange of securities. For example, suppose you want to buy a motorcycle, but you do not have money, and you went to your friend and asked for money, and your friend gave you the money to buy the motorcycle, but he wanted to, to minimize his risk. He wanted to minimize his risk. So he liked to mortgage your old motorcycle, and you kept your old motorcycle to your friend and borrowed money with a particular interest rate. After some days, you returned money with interest rate, and also you get back your old motorcycle. So when the Reserve Bank lends money, there is a repurchase condition. There is a repurchase condition, and this is called the repo rate. So repo rate is a rate at which the central bank lends money to the commercial bank. Okay. Now look, reverse repo rate. What is reverse repo rate? Reverse repo rate is the interest offered by the RBI to banks who deposit funds into the treasury. Sometimes commercial banks earned more money and they could invest this money to their customers, but the banks can deposit the money in RBI, and in exchange of that, the commercial banks would earn some interest rate. So reverse repo rate is nothing but the opposite of the repo rate. So reverse repo rate is the interest offered by the RBI to banks who deposit funds into the treasury. Now, Now look, the major differences between repo rate and reverse repo rate. What is the major difference? This is the repo rate. Repo rate, an increase in repo rate will make commercial banks borrow less. If there is an increase in repo rate, then commercial bank will borrow less. If there is an increase in repo rate, then commercial banks borrow less. Okay. Now, the use of repo rate is utilized for controlling the inflation. By increasing the repo rate, RBI tries to control the inflation. Now, drain excess liquidity from the market. By increasing the repo rate, excess liquidity from the market can be drained out. Excess liquidity from the market can be drained out from the market by increasing the repo rate. And repo rate is always higher than the reverse repo rate. So there are main four factors that represents the repo rate. And now we differentiate these with the reverse repo rate. Look, this is the reverse repo rate. And inject liquidity into the economic system. Reverse repo rate is the rate at which the commercial banks get interest rate from the RBI. It means it injects, increase in reverse repo rate injects liquidity into the economic system. Okay, here is the difference with the repo rate. Now, an increase in the reverse repo rate will allow commercial banks to transfer funds to RBI. On the contrary, when there is an increase in repo rate, commercial banks get less money from the RBI. And in the economy, you can reduce the money supply in case of increasing repo rate. But in case of reverse repo rate, there is an increase in reverse repo rate. An increase in the reverse repo rate will allow commercial banks to transfer funds to RBI. Now, lower than repo rate. Reverse repo rate is always lower than the repo rate. On the contrary, the repo rate is always higher than the reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate controls the money supply. On the contrary, the repo rate controls the inflation. By increasing the reverse repo rate, there is an increase in money supply in the economy. But when there is an increase in repo rate, it can control the inflation. Okay, it can control the inflation. Now, bank rate. What is the bank rate? Look, Bank rate is the rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks without selling or buying any security. Okay, here is the difference with the repo rate. Without selling or buying any security. This is generally a last resort and hence no collateral is required. In our previous example, when you liked to buy a motorcycle, you can lend money from your friend without depositing your old motorcycle to your friend. But you do not have any motorcycle to be deposited. So you can lend money. You can lend money with a higher interest rate. That is the bank rate. So when bank rate is the rate at which the RBI lends money to commercial banks without selling or buying any securities. When there is no exchange of securities, there is bank rate at which the RBI lends money to commercial banks. Now, the rate of interest. Rate of interest is the rate charged on the loans offered by the commercial banks to the people with or without any collateral. Rate of interest is the rate charged on the loans offered by the commercial banks. You should remember this. In case of repo rate, RBI lent money to commercial banks at a rate that is called the repo rate. And it can be a instrument. It is an instrument to control the inflation. It is a credit control method. Repo rate is a credit control method. But interest rate varies bank to bank. Rate of interest is the rate charged on the loans offered by the commercial banks to the people, to the individual, to the ordinary people, with or without any collateral. So naturally, rate of interest varies from bank to bank. And it is not used as a credit control methods. So this is the fundamental idea of repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and interest rate. So I hope you got the point, and now it is very easy to differentiate what is repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and interest rate. So thank you for enjoying my lecture.